to bring on Harlan Pyan here. He's co-founder of All About Trends. He took a little break during the winter months, but he's back here on our show. Harlan Pyan, how you doing this morning?
Hey, I am back.
So we've talked about 4 stocks so far in 35 minutes. Can you help us pick up the pace?
Wow, you guys are on a roll. I've been listening. It's like, wow, who put a quarter in you guys?
Did you look at that Equinox there yesterday, that AQXP?
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking about it all last night. I knew this was going to come up this morning, and I got one phrase that's pretty much ought to hit home. You gotta sell your peanuts while the circus is in town. How many times do we talk about that?
The Harlan Pyan famous phrase totally applies here. Stock goes from 2 to 55. The circus just isn't in town. The clowns, everybody, the elephants are standing on balls and stuff, and spinning hula hoops around. That's when the circus is in town.
Exactly, and when it goes from 2 to 55. Who's the guy that's buying it at 55?
That is what I would like to know.
That's the guy I want to talk to. I want to find out what is going through that guy's head.
You think it's going to 60?
Well, what you do?
Well, there's the greater fool theory.
Dennis, there's been different situations where we've traded in when there's been crazy markets. I'd say there's probably only been a half dozen situations where I've had such a winning position that I didn't know what the hell to do with it. And this was even like pre-decimals. And what I did is I just threw things out at levels. I would have been, if I had 1,000 shares of this at any one time, and I'd say it was going up through the 30s, I would have went 31, 32, 33, 34, 30, all the way up. I would have missed the top. But really, when the markets get that out of control, anything you put out there, pretty much any kind of bids or offer, and maybe Ace can comment on this, you get done. Whether you're right, wrong, or indifferent, because people are just hunting for liquidity. Harlan, would you kind of echo that sentiment if you were fortunate enough to be long, 1,000 shares or something like this? You don't want to pick one point. You want to sell what's going up. Scaling out, I guess, is the only thing you can do.
Absolutely. And you know what? While it's doing that, and I'm selling along the way, after every sell that is executed, I'd be cussing all the way. Because the next thing you know, it's at 31, and it's like, I sold it at 30, and it's at 31. I sold it at 31, and it's at 35. You're cussing all the way up. And so, but you know what?
You're relieved, too. Today, You're relieved. I, too.
True.
Yep, but
yeah.
All right. Anyway,
I can assure you, anybody that was selling that, they pretty much were out for the evening on the town after that.
Yeah, especially Brown
Think about
Brothers.
it. Are you going to be sitting around at home? It's like, I'm out of here. I'm going somewhere. I'm going out to eat or something. Maybe to Shake Shack. Who knows?
All right.
Having 2 Shake Shack burgers.
All right. Well, some of us has to get up and work early in the morning, Harlan. But if you're if you could go out on a school night, good for you. You want to go to Shake Shack here? Is that something that a little bit too? Have you been participating in the Shake Shack rally?
I haven't. I really haven't been paying attention to it too much. It's just, for me, it's all about specific chart patterns. And, I really, after it tagged trend channel resistance at the end of May, in that accelerated, another case in point, you got to sell your peanuts while the circus is in town. Look at that spike in May, up to 95, 97 or whatever it was. See, that's what I'm saying. Anytime they run these things, you just got to trail and scale.
Okay, Harlan, well, let's jump into some of these specific charts because we know you're always eyeing a lot of charts. What is on your radar? Which charts are you looking at? And do you got any hot stock tips for us here?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm not looking at Lugal.
You're not looking at the Google.
What did you call it?
No, Lugal. I called it Lugal.
Why?
Why Lugal?
Hot Tub Time Machine. Gosh, don't you guys ever watch any movies on Netflix?
I have not seen that Hot Tub Time Machine, though, but it's always one that I see.
You'll get it.
What's Netflix?
It's on my bucket list.
All right.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it last week, and what did you say? You were talking if it busted 668 or something? That was the little minor breakout pattern, consolidate. It was because it was consolidating, and then all of a sudden, boom, broke out. We were good for a day, and then it came back down, and here's your retest of the highs. So, if you're looking to lock some gains on strength before they dissipate, like we've seen so much as of late, here's your shot.
Any thoughts on like what they're actually doing? We talked about it for 15 minutes, and really didn't come up to major conclusions here. They seem like to do their own thing, separating the companies. Any fundamental thoughts on it?
None. It's just, when you start to see companies do this, the only thought I have is, what are they going to do? They're going to keep all the really good pieces, and then ultimately, maybe down the road, are they going to sell off all the junk to who? IPO to the public, right?
Okay.
So, that's just my thinking. So, of course, you can think whatever you want, but let the market confirm your thinking first.
Apple was a broken chart on Wednesday here, and took down the 200-day moving average. People are looking for $100. You get the snapback rally yesterday. Does this classify as a snapback rally into resistance? We might be right. Probably came back right into that 200-day moving average. Any take on Apple?
Well, that's what we were talking about last week. You're pretty much done to the downside. And you know what I find interesting? Why is it 6 days ago everybody's like, it's going to 100, it's going to 80, whatever. And, then all of a sudden it makes a big move yesterday, and now you get the same guy saying that, you know what? It was overdone. It's like, well, how do you pay attention to these guys with any merit? Because they're human beings and they react to the action as well. This is why I like to use the charts. The charts don't lie. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying exactly what you're saying. We all see it, and that is, it fell apart, and all it's done is what? It snapped back right up to the 200-day and a lot of overhead supply. And there's a magic little number. If you take the lows of August and the highs of July, and you throw some Fibonacci on it, yesterday's highs was a 38% fib retracement. So there you have it. So you're in the zone for now. You've got to have to start having some overhead supply here, some resistance up in this level here. So who knows what they're going to do with it? All I know is this is an area, the face of fear was the trade in tandem with the indexes. At 112, when nobody wanted it and everybody was scared, that was the time you had to have it. Now you start seeing everybody start talking about, well, it was overdone. Nah, I'm gonna pay attention to the 200-day and this resistance. Okay. I wouldn't be a buyer of it here.
This is a great point you're bringing up here. And we know you're a very technical trader here, Harlan, but do you pay attention to that sentiment when everybody's coming, on CNBC and saying, look, Apple's in trouble, or, or Twitter's in trouble, or whatever it is? Do you start looking at that from a contrarian perspective?
I think when it lines up with the charts,
I think I said
it. Yeah, I said it last week. When the psychology starts to line up with the charts, when everybody starts talking about it, you already missed it. You're late to the party. In a lot of cases, for me, I'm more of a swing trader. I'm not a day trader. I work off the daily charts, and I use the even shorter term frequencies just to fine tune my entries. But when it comes to the psychology, it's amazing how the psychology on the street of the talking heads kind of corresponds with key levels in a stock. So it's just an observation that I've noticed. So I want to try and take the opinions out of it because, action speaks louder than words. What's the stock doing? Let your stock tell you what to do by the action they exhibit. To heck with what everybody else says, because, if you've been around the block, and we've all been around the block, and we've seen this time and again, one guy will say this, another guy will say that, another guy will say this, and another guy will say that. And you know what happens? You see something you like, and because you get all these cross currents, you end up doing nothing. And then all of a sudden, if you would have just listened to yourself and listened to what the stock was actually doing, you would have had the stock instead of allowing yourself to be influenced by the good opinion of others. And so, you got to trade what you know. And from that perspective, listen to your gut. You people, what you need to see in a lot of respects. So, that's why I try not to listen to all this stuff. It's just noise. It's a lot of noise. And the next thing, I've been talked out of so many good stocks,
Yeah.
Because of that. So, lesson learned, right? So, I just let the stocks tell me what to do.
Couple symbols coming out of the chat here, Harlan. We got our yoga trader, Downward Dog. He's asking about, has anyone looked at, or what are your thoughts here on ATHM, which is Auto Home? Stock's been beat up as of late. Is this one you're looking at, ATHM?
Isn't that a Chinese stock?
ADR.
Yeah, that bothers me right there. Just a simple Chinese theme bothers me. When you look at exports, what did we hear yesterday? Exports were down, 8% or something? That kind of bothers me only from the perspective of, the big picture with their markets, simply because if we are the world's consumer, because 2/3 of our economy is, consumer spending, and they are the ones that are the producers, what does that say about our economy under the surface? So not to mention, that theme out there, gosh, you blink and the next thing you know, they kill those stocks across the board. So you got to ask yourself, really, do you really want to be there? I can see what he's saying, 36 and change down in here. It's, it's ugly. And, could it get a bounce? Could it stabilize? Yeah, there's some resistance, pushing that 38, 40, things like that. So if you're one of these bottom fishers and you got a good beat on it, it's your call. It's not something that's on my radar.
SF Bright is asking you about Loco, LOCO. Here's a chart that I haven't looked at for a couple of months, and man, this stock's been beat up. El Polo Loco here has been just coming down. It's starting to form some support there around 18. Harlan, what are your thoughts here on this one?
Yeah, it's, 18, 19, 18, 20. It's just, right now, when you look at a chart pattern, the best chart patterns, it should jump out at you. If you have to think about it, it's not there, at least for me. I look at a chart right away. I know whether I want it next or not. I know what I'm looking for, and I'm just not seeing it right now. Maybe it is stabilizing down here. Maybe it can go between 18 and 20 and build a whole new base for who knows how long. So it's just not one that I am interested in. So let's talk about something that isn't it. Obviously, you can see the stock since February. There's really no patterns to work off of on the long side. So why don't we start to talk about some names that we can that are in clearly defined uptrends, and what are they doing? They're pulling right back off their highs. How about Starbucks? SBUX.
Bringing it up here.
That's one that's on my radar.
You like this pullback?
Well, if you look at a daily chart, 6 months, if you can pull that up, I want you to act like a 10-year-old. If you're a 10-year-old kid, and I showed you this chart, and I said to you, what's the overall trend of this chart? What are you going to say?
Oh.
Exactly. What more do you need to know? Where's the 50-day? 50 days hanging around 54.65. That's support. Notice the late June, early July consolidation there between, say, 53 and 54. There's another support level. So you've got multiple supports. Here you have a stock that came up to trend channel resistance, just like we talked about with Disney yesterday, or last week, just like we talked about Regeneron. These stocks, they hit these trend channel resistances when you line up your tops, and they pull back. So, here's a nice issue. It's in a clearly defined uptrend. It's pulling back. It's above the 50-day with multiple supports just below. So there you go. It just jumps right out at you.
How about IBIO here? I know this is a little bit of a wild child stock here. Any thoughts? Is this a IB? Oh, you're probably not going to like this one. IBIO. That's that's a penny stock here. You look at any penny stocks, Harlan?
No.
Okay. How about we got another one, Baidu? Baidu. I know you're going to say it's a Chinese ADR, had the big hit. Just from a technical perspective here, Harlan, can you see any reason for this thing to bounce?
I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing an issue that if you look at it since May, it gets slammed and then it does a snapback rally, falls apart, and then it does another snapback rally, at the end of or mid-July, and then it falls apart. What do you see it doing now? It fell apart and now it's doing a snapback rally. So, that's been the only thing that stands out to me at that chart. I'm not smart enough to say this thing had bottomed out and it's headed higher. I'd rather go back to only the best and forget the rest. And when you look at a chart like Starbucks, it just jumps out at you. How about let's go to Monster?
Okay, MNST.
You betcha.
All right, what do you see in there?
Here's
Harlan?
another good example. In the short term, in tandem with the indexes at the July highs, what do you notice? Broke out of a base at, let's just call it 145, went on a run, made it to 155, just at the exact same time that the market was tagging a resistance zone and was ready to roll over. So in the short term, a breakout buyer, hey, 145, 155, thank you very much. You broke your little uptrend. But what do you notice now? It's pulling back off of its peak. And where is it? It's hanging right around. Old resistance, once broken, tends to become new support, is the rule of thumb, right? So, 144, 145 was the breakout, and here it is right back there. Albeit, look at those daily range bars. They're pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm looking at it, I guess, as long as it's above the 50-day, which is at 138 and climbing, the stock's in an uptrend. But, if I see it 140, 142 in that zone, I might take a little piece of it, a teaser piece, just to be there, to which I can always add to it more at a later date.
Harlan, 15 seconds here. Market thoughts, overall market thoughts.
Sloppy and choppy, late summer, low volume trade. Buy the dips, sell the rips. Just make sure you know where support is when you're buying the dips.
All right, Harlan Pyan, co-founder of All About Trends, joining us here on Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep. Harlan, great speaking to you as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
You bet. Take care, guys. See you later.
Thanks, Harlan.